Yelp. The General Service Administration says it will take the online ratings into account to improve public services. Everything from the Transportation Security Administration to national parks. People can rate bathrooms at the parks, review their experience with the IRS, or assess the efficiency of the local post office. The government says it will respond to the comments. So will this solve common problems, or are we just creating a nation of complainers? The government on Yelp, that's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on Facebook, Fox 26 page, and on Twitter. Use the hashtag Fox26 for life. Joining us in our newsroom again is our roundup panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico, our news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. All right, not surprisingly, guys, the complaints so far have really centered around the TSA, from what I understand, on Yelp. Do you really think something will get done and people will respond to this?
This is not going to end well for the government. I can't wait to see the IRS page around April 15th. This is not going to be good. You know, look, and if you don't like today's show, you can get on Facebook and Twitter and complain about us. The idea that we are creating a nation of complainers, I don't think is really an accurate statement. We are generally a nation of people who get to complain about our government when we don't like what they do. I found it odd that Yelp had to cut a deal with the government to do it, because Yelp is not cutting deals with these private businesses that people are complaining about every day on their webpage. And the First Amendment says I can put the government on my webpage if I want to. So I found that a little bit odd. I don't see that this Yelp page is going to do anything other than highlight particular problems with particular government agencies. But in a nation of almost 300 million or more than, I don't know how many people we have in this country, 320 million people, there's always going to be plenty of complaints about something in the government.
I think some bureaucrat who thought he was losing his job decided to come up with this idea, because you have to create a committee, and they said that they're going to create a committee to actually review these comments. But then what? Are you going to contact the customers? Are you actually going to react to every complaint? If you're not going to actually do something with the input that you're receiving from the customers and the reviewers, what's the point?
Just a feel-good thing.
Yeah, what's the point? So I don't know if this is quite a good idea. I think I agree with you. This is not going to end up well. No,
there's going to be more complaints than positive. I called the IRS yesterday, and they were very helpful.
Look, we have this in our culture, this government piñata. We love to take a bat and knock it out every single time. But the reality is, when you open up your tap water and the water comes out, there's a government employee that made sure that that water was there. When you drive on your streets and there's a red light or a green light, there's a government employee that's managing it. When you call 911, a government employee picks it up. When you drop your kids off at school, there's a government employee that teaches that child. So we have to stop this kind of culture of making government the piñata. Because if we don't, then what you get is a clown like, Donald Trump, who starts leading in the Republican primary polls. This is, it's come to a point where government has become the butt of every joke, but we're the ones that elect this government, and our neighbors and our friends are the ones that work for this government. So
what about that, Jackie? Donald Trump aside, what about his point that, there are a lot of good that government does every day, 24 hours a day, and shouldn't we be acknowledging that?
Yeah, but we're not going to acknowledge that on Yelp. I mean, the point of Yelp is actually to write a review. And usually if you're going to write about the governmental agency, no one's going to sit there and say, oh, this was really good, my water came on today, and all the examples that he said. They're going to write those agencies and say, look, I had problems with this official, I had problems with this administrator. And yeah, I'd like to, you've seen the only agency that's really taken them up on this so far is the passport agency. TSA said, oh, I don't think
we're
not going to participate at this. And he's right, because whenever you have crazy people like Hillary Clinton at the top of the Democrat ticket, I mean, why would we do it?
Hang on, let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media. I got to cut in right here, Sally, because this is about to go down.
I know, right? We posted on my Facebook page, what government agency would you complain about? Ben says, I definitely would not complain about the IRS. They may just happen to randomly select me for an audit. And then Brian says, the VA. I've had too many issues with the medical center and even more with the regional office.
Well, and Ben, you just said it to the IRS, yep. So sorry. Better call your CPA today. So, but what about that? What about what Ben's saying? Is there some concern of the public if you start complaining about these agencies of retaliation?
Well, I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, but in the end, the expectation is that the government can't do anything better, and the reality is government does a lot of things really well that we never acknowledge. And so when you talk about have we created a country of complainers, I think we've created a culture in which we bash government for fun, and that's becoming very detrimental to our society.
Isn't there some good that can come out of something like this? That when you see the agency sees complaints, and if there's a number of complaints about the same aspect of it, that is a place for that agency to look at that problem, if it is a problem, and change.
I'm usually not a Debbie Downer. I'm always the glass is half full. There is nothing good that can come out of this. And I really cannot see it. I cannot see a majority of the reviewers, a majority of the people logging on just to write about something really positive about the government. Already you have a culture and you have a climate of people saying they don't like bureaucrats. Government is too big. Things go too slowly when you have so many bureaucrats doing things. Now you're going to create a committee just to sit online to watch reviews? No, this is not going to be good.
Do you think that as people point out problems with individual agencies, that we can see a positive change come out of this? I mean, there's millions, I don't Yelp personally, but there's millions of Yelp users.
Every customer service program across the board always relies on customer service, what we can do better. And if you fulfill that, you basically improve the quality of service you give. So it's logical to think that if you create an environment where people can give a specific complaint rather than I just hate the government, if they can say I don't like this, and that can get fixed. If it got fixed, guess what?
If
you
it was
would
a
feel
problem.
better.
But that's a big if. That's
Right.
a big if, because so far no agency has said this committee is going to be put in place and we're going to do A, B, and C once we receive a complaint.
Let's see where that goes.
But they're the ones that have asked for this, and
Okay.
the reason, so they're leading the way in terms of being part of Yelp.
And Sally, just to follow up on Tony, I love the IRS, and I think they do an outstanding job protecting Americans and
Yes.
our income.